Hey, y'alls. Welcome back to the Solomon Project, where it's not how much you make, it's how much that counts. I'm your host, Richard Burns. Don't forget in the description below, y'alls, 3 apps or 3 brokers. You've got the Moomoo, you've got Webull, and you have Acorns. Now, if you need an explanation of how Acorn works in particular, just let me know. Leave a comment down below. We can go over it. Also, you have 2 channels to 2 entrepreneurs. You got the All Bomb Lady, and you have Tara Helms, aka the Professor. Wow. Just wow. So much going on. You know, I don't write stuff down. It might make for a more organized approach to my content creation, maybe. But I'm either watching something or listening to something associated with economics and finance, or I'm communicating directly with family and friends that are in the world of economics and finance to some degree or another, like a friend of mine that teaches economics at Trinity College, or my nephew who's an economist and works for a bank, or another nephew who's got a high rank in the military and does a global supply chain, stuff like that. And I get some interesting perspectives. I got another one that actually used to live in China, and I do know that if you go on YouTube, you'll find content related to all that stuff, but they tend to push the same narrative for the most part. But I'm lucky because, like I said, I get a different perspective. I get a more in-depth look as to stuff that's going on. By the way, we are in Indiana, and we're going to pick up some stuff in Indiana. Let me have a look and see here. By the way, we are in Indiana. Oh, did you hear that? Repeat, I repeat. Hey, now I can see who's here. Nice. Sunflower's here. Hi, Sunflower. Bambi, you're here. How you doing, Bambi? I'm sorry I didn't respond right away. Yeah, I'm close to Michigan. But I'm actually in Indiana. And now, oh man, these streets got... You could wind up getting a back injury with some of these streets and how they and how bad of a condition the streets are. And it is the bad conditions on the road that will repair work done on your truck. And I just delivered, by the way, Bambi, I just delivered to Dollar General, and I was looking at the notification that there was for the drivers that this facility has anhydrous. And when I saw that, I immediately remembered what you said about your dad. Yeah, these bumps on the road, man, they'll knock this right out of your mouth. Some of these states are worse than others. I'm trying to remember. There's some states that I've driven in where the dips on the highway are absolutely horrendous. And the professor in her latest video was reporting on this this fake milk, this Franken milk, she called it. Pretty wild. Anything to suppress hunger, make a profit. Because a hungry citizenry is not a good thing. When the citizens are hungry in large numbers, you can have a revolt on your hand, causing instability, and business owners will not be happy. The greatest appeal to a country like this one is the social stability, along with the, what is that term called? Man, I'm losing it. I need some caffeine. Maybe that'll spark me up. The rule of law. That attracts to the point where new relationships are being made between nations. New relationships for the purpose of doing business. Oh, the way station is open. Let's go. We have to go in. I'm empty right now, so the scale shouldn't be an issue. Stations. They have sensors that check your tires, and if your tires are below a certain amount of inflation, what the heck? It said open, and all these trucks are just blasting right by. I don't have to get on the scale. Like I said, I'm empty, so there's there are these quick scales that they have as you're entering, and if you're below a certain amount, you're automatically, usually, except for Florida. I don't know how Florida works. Sometimes when I go into Florida, I'm weighing about 78,000 pounds, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna have to go on the scale to make sure that the weight is distributed properly, but no, they give me a pass. And then other times when I go in empty, they want me to get on the scale. So I don't know about Florida. Florida gets funky sometimes. 188 miles to the pickup. Get funky. So yeah, so we got some fabricated milk, some engineered milk. There's all kind of engineering going on with our food. Well, it has been going on for a while. And there's so much going on. Marjorie Taylor Greene giving up. But a lot of people are speculating because of the way she was expressing herself. A lot of people are speculating that perhaps she might give the presidency a shot. And MAGA, man, let me tell you something. Do y'alls know who Nick Fuentes is? Do y'alls know Nick Fuentes? Nick Fuentes is a self-declared white supremacist. Self-declared. From what I understand. Pretty wild. You have to go, Sunflower? Okay. Hope all is well. So Nick Fuentes, I was listening to one of his recordings. Well, one of his videos. I was watching it, actually. And had I not known who Nick Fuentes was, I would have seriously thought I was listening to somebody on the left of the political spectrum. Yeah, on the left. Nick was going off on Trump's policies, on MAGA in general. I was surprised. I really was surprised. If you just heard Nick Fuentes on that video and didn't know who he was, what he stood for, you would think you were listening to somebody on Bernie Sanders' team or AOC's team. I was in shock. What? The broken down truck and the repair truck on the shoulder. What do we have to do? Yeah, we got to move over. That's the law. That's the law, y'alls. So if you're driving a car and you see that, you see a vehicle on the shoulder, the truck on the right lane has to move over. So best up with what's going on, because it's a never-ending story. However, the core of the story, hey, Professor, I'm in Indiana. The core of what goes on financially, economically, is pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same. But there are elements that change, increase, decrease, stall. And of course, there are people who are so thirsty. Is in a what? Oh, yeah, in and out because of the area and the availability of signal. It'll do that. As a result, I try to gauge exactly where I'm gonna go live with the GoPro. I thought perhaps that in this area there would be enough signal towers that it wouldn't happen too often or at all. Guess I was wrong. Very windy out here right now. Very windy. I came down from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Came down to Indiana from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and this alert came out about a winter storm. I was, when that alert came out, I was calculating that I would probably be in Chicago by 9 o'clock. That had me a little concerned. Oh, you got some raspberry jam going on? Oh no, urgent care. No, please. Oh, you can hear the wind? Yeah, I mean, this is serious out here. And being empty, I get shoved from side to side sometimes. Yeah, urgent care. I finally got to see what you were talking about with the nurses. Unbelievable. The Department of Education downgraded their status, and now they are no longer classified as professional. Wow. Unbelievable. That has a financial impact associated with that. Oh, I don't blame you then. Yeah, the knees are something else. As a practitioner of judo and football, man, the knees get tore up. I've got issues with my knees, but I just deal with it. So much damage being done. So much damage. And what this bill is creating some chaos. There are people that are benefiting, of course, if you're of the wealthy class. Not only are you going to be okay, but you're probably benefiting from these changes. I got to get some odium in my system. Yeah, if you're the wealthy class, you're probably benefiting from this. I had mentioned it in previous videos. I'll say it again. Corporations benefit from a desperate population, from a desperate populace, because it makes it easier to lock in lower labor costs when the masses are desperate. All this talk about bringing manufacturing back, and a lot of MAGA were all excited. They ate that up. But it appears that they didn't bother to think how that was going to be possible to bring manufacturing back. As far as I'm concerned, there's only two ways to bring manufacturing back. One of them is by having manufacturing plants that don't need very many people, like these data centers, for example. You hardly need anybody for the data centers. You got these huge facilities that are consuming huge amounts of electricity, huge amounts of water, but only a handful of people managing those facilities. Just a handful working those facilities. So how does that help for labor? How does that help? It really doesn't help. There are some corporations that are making big money off of that, but it doesn't require many people. So their labor costs are extremely low. So that in the category of manufacturing, then again, MAGA didn't do the math. It seems like MAGA is allergic to math. And when they do use math, they're using the wrong equations. For the circumstances, they use the wrong equations. The other way to get manufacturing back is through a desperate population. So desperate that the money that they're willing to work for is at a rate that would be so low that they can keep their products or their services cheap enough. However, cheap enough to sell to who? Because the U.S. is the largest consumer nation in the world. But if the vast majority of people are making $1 an hour, are we really going to maintain the number one consumer status for the world? Because a desperate populace that winds up working for pennies not only are they not going to have much to consume with, but it's going to be a domino effect with especially small businesses with rental properties. All these businesses and all these people are going to have to accept less from the population because the population is making less. And that transition would be, or let's just say it won't be a smooth transition. Imagine a landlord saying, okay, so I'm not going to charge you $1,700 a month. I'll be charging you, I'll be going down from $1,700 a month to $500 a month. What? Now, yeah, Professor, that's right. So, what's the bank going to tell the landlord? Maybe the landlord purchased the property a year ago when it was super high, when the value of that property was outrageously high. Now, because most people are making only a fraction of what minimum wage is, they can't make those they can't make those rental payments anymore, and then the property owner is going to have to figure out how they're going to pay back the bank, unless the bank decides to and I don't I can't imagine a bank would do that, but that the bank will say, okay, you bought the house for 1.5 million, don't worry, we're going to lower it to just 500,000. From 1.5 million, we're going to lower it to 500,000. That way you don't owe us so much. Banks don't work like that. Yeah, I doubt it. I doubt Mamdani is going to destroy anything. He's one person. He's one person, and every district in New York City has its own representative, which means that each representative has to look out for whoever their donor is. And things can't be done unilaterally with the mayor. And he can say whatever he wants, but it's a group that has to get together to make things happen. As far as I'm concerned, he can say whatever he wants. That he'll be able to make it happen? No, he's only one person. He's only one person, and the wealthy have a great deal of influence because people will do anything for money. With housing, well, I remember growing up in New York City, and one of the complications of the housing was rent control. I saw the impact when I moved to the Upper West Side. When I moved to the Upper West Side, the neighborhood I moved into was still low income. Yeah, he's gonna find out, or he probably already knows. It's everybody that voted for him that's gonna find out, and that's usually what happens in the political game. Some politicians say the right things at the right time for the right people, or enough of them, so that they can get into the political office that they're seeking. Whether what he's saying is reasonable or not, actually reasonable or not, well, that's a different story. The person seeking the political position, they have to convince the people that he wants their votes from. He's got to convince them that he's their guy. And so these people are gonna, are they just listening to him and getting emotionally wrapped up on the words that he's chosen, the phrases he's saying? Are they emotionally wrapped up on that? Does he have a political experience, previous political experience? And if he does, is anybody bothering to check what he voted for when it came time to implement policies? Or are these people just going by whatever they hear on the news, the criticism, the opinions? Are they locked in with the opinions of some talking head from one of the news or some content creator that that's part of a bubble that they're in? Look at this. Look how dangerous this is. You see this guy with the pickup? Look at them working on the vehicle. Look how close they are to the highway. Dangerous. That's why you got to move over. And running for office costs a lot of money, and part of the reason why it costs a lot of money is because you got people out doing gathering all the information necessary to create the strategy necessary for you to try to win the election. So yeah, I mean, Mamdani, nothing against Mamdani, by the way, but he was saying things to enough people that actually vote, because that's another thing. If you don't vote, you don't count. If you don't vote, you don't count. Okay. If you don't vote, you don't count. You're not a concern. You're not someone who, a politician, feels the need to have to convince. There's no need for that. You're not a voter. Or if there's a neighborhood or a city or a state that voter participation is very low, well then you're not a factor. You may have some needs, but why would anybody be concerned about your needs when you don't even vote? They're going to focus on the areas and the people that vote. Older people vote. So when a politician or somebody who's seeking office wants to address a group of people, they're going to keep in mind older people vote. So they're going to say things that will appeal to older people's interest. That's how it works. Oh, we got poor people in New York. Yeah, you got poor people in New York City, but some of them don't vote. And if they don't vote, well, not only are we not going to say things to try to appeal to you so that you can vote, but whenever we negotiate across the table, whenever a politician negotiates across the table with another politician who might be of a different party or could be of the same party but has constituents that have different needs, they're not going to consider the ones that don't vote. Ooh. Yeah, see, you're focusing on that, Professor, so it will more than likely come out that way. Superfly jam. That's what I'm talking about. Oh, snap. Dude's living in a camper, got his flag out and everything. It's a process, huh? Doing all that stuff, Professor? Gotta really be dedicated. Small business owner. Business is an amazing challenge. An amazing challenge. And there are people who are just clueless as to how much effort a person puts into it. Man. You know, you're a part of a neighborhood, maybe you're from the hood, butter, and like in your case, for example, Professor, from where you're from, how you left, you were away from the very people you were raised with, and you have to make sacrifices. And now you're even starting your own business. And then when you go back to where you're originally from, the neighborhood you were raised in, there were people that chose not to make the sacrifices you made. But I'm pretty sure you have that are under the impression that you're supposed to be sharing with them. From your sacrifice, you're obligated to share. It's a more challenging process, huh, the soap? Yeah. And if you want to avoid drama when you go back, you gotta go in below the radar. Can't make any noise, you can't make any big announcements. Because there are people that truly believe you're obligated to share in your growth. Now, I'm not against sharing. However, you have people that demand things, and those very people that demand things had many opportunities to put in work themselves and advance. Oh, nice. Jam was easy. Nice. That's what's up. Okay, so as I made the statement about sharing. Now, I had mentioned before, unfortunately, people ask for help. They ask for help, and in reality, they don't want your help. They want you to what's the word I like to use? It escapes me right now. The odium hasn't kicked in. They want you to enable them. Because sometimes the help that when they ask for help, sometimes that can easily be resolved by writing some instructions on a paper and handing it to them. Here. Do this. Do that. Coddle. No, enable. Coddle. I guess coddle can be used too. But I meant enable. Enable is the word I like to use a lot. They want you to just straight up just drop some money in their hand or in their account. And in the meantime, they would have had the money had they not gone to the bar or the club that particular weekend. They would have had the money. But they decided to go to the club. Get drunk off of $15 and $20 shots. And then they come to you and they say, hey, I need help. What do you need? I need $100. $100. Need $100. Okay. So let's sit down and figure out how you can find $100. Oh, what do you mean? Sit down and figure it out. Yeah. I know you work. I know you make X amount. So I'm surprised you need $100. What would you need $100 for? Oh, I'm not asking for a lecture. Oh, I'm not trying to give you a lecture. You asked for help. So, in order for me to help you, I got to figure out, I got to do some math. Why can't you just let me $100? I know you got it. Well, how come you don't have $100? Because you should have it. No, they don't. It's true. That's true, Professor. That's true. Combination is usually from a combination of making emotionally charged decisions and I guess having a terrible memory. Because if you go through stuff, remember, and you should prep like you always recommend, Professor. Prepping. You should always prep. especially when it comes to money and finance, you should always prep, because our economy, it moves us. And guess what? When even scripture, I mean, you can find, I was talking about that the other day, about why I gave my son as a gift a Bible, even though he's not a believer. But isn't there a story in scripture, Professor, about one of the brothers that was handed over to, who was it? Was it the Egyptians? Joseph. Joseph was handed to, what group was that? And the king found favor in him because of his ability to foresee the future somehow. Or to interpret dreams. He was able to interpret dreams. So the king wanted a dream interpreted. And in the dream they spoke of 7 prosperous years and 7 years that were depressive. Basically a cycle. And our economy works that way. It has cycles. It goes through cycles. We have periods in our economy where the economy contracts and periods when it expands. When it contracts, a lot of people hurt. Yeah, my oldest. Although I'm starting to wonder, because we've had some conversations as of late, and it sounded like he's starting to believe. But going back to the cycles, yeah, we go through cycles. We go through an economic contraction and people hurt, it's something that they should try to remember and prepare themselves during the expansions, so that when they hit the next contraction, they're prepared. Yeah, they sure are. They sure are, Professor. However, instead of preparing, they go back to YOLO. You only live once. You only live once. And then they wind up forgetting about preparing themselves for the next contraction. When the next contraction comes, they find themselves hurt again. You should have preparation in place, yes. For the ones that remember the pain and want to avoid the pain, they put preparations in place. They put preparations in place. Preparation. Yes, there are more that will not put the preparation in place. Because when the expansion comes, here come the good times all over again. Shout out to Stitch Monkey. They're the ones that made my merch, shirts and hats. When I come on, Professor, and encourage people to get involved in the stock market, I only have the expectation that maybe 2% of everybody that listens to my videos of me encouraging them to participate in the stock market, my expectation is 2%. That's why I talk about the 2%. That's why I talk about the 2%. That 2% was driven into my head when I was a broker. Because as a broker, you're really a salesman. CEOs are salesmen. COOs are salesmen. Everybody in the world of business and finance is a salesperson. All of them. But when I went through my orientation, I was made very clear that I should think about whether or not I wanted to pursue a career as a broker, because the rejection rate is 98%. The rejection rate. If you can't endure a rejection rate of 98%, then becoming a broker is not a good idea. %98 rejection rate. So when I do my recorded videos, I'm very well aware of, and it's across the board. It's not. So if I see my persuasion as a sale, then I keep my expectations are tempered to that 98 and 2 rule that I learned. In the beginning, it's rough, because sometimes you take it personal that someone wouldn't want to open an account and transfer millions of dollars into the brokerage. we go, another way station. Went right through. Like butter. Not only that, but or at least my personality, because of my personality, I wanted people to do well so badly. But it's a personal decision and one that should be respected. Aloha, Rachel. Aloha. Yes, butter. It was a very stressful environment, Professor. Very stressful.